In scenario 3, we're going to set all the accident year loss ratios back to 60%. And you can see that from the summary table, all of the real accident year ratios are now 60%. The parameter we're going to change is the strength of the case outstanding, or in other words, the strength of the case reserves. So let's take a look at the reported loss triangle. Something I didn't mention in the base case scenario, because I wanted to keep it simple, is that the strength of the case outstanding was 100%. That meant that each claim was paid and closed for the exact amount of the initial case reserve. No redundancy and no deficiency. Now in scenario 3, I told the simulation to increase the case outstanding strength by 20%, from 100% to 120%, and to do it at t equals 4. So in other words, calendar year 4. So that means that every claim that's reported in calendar year 4 or later is going to have a case reserve that's 100%, that's 20% too high. So all of these red cells contain at least some claims that are reserved at the higher level. And for accident year 4 and 5 and 6, all of the claims are reserved at that higher level. Now, a change in case reserve only affects the reported loss triangle. We're not even going to look at the paid loss triangle. You can look at that later. The paid loss development will be perfectly accurate. Now, the key question is, do these changes in the data triangle have an effect on the development pattern? And the answer is yes. All of these red values in the LDF triangle correspond to the red values in the data triangle. And we can see that our previously stable development pattern is now distorted. If you didn't notice this, you might go ahead, when you're making your selections, you might go ahead and pick the all-period average as the default. So these are the values that you would select. And if you now look at the summary table, you can see, well, the first 3 accident years, you do get the right answer, 60%. That's because the change in case reserve strength didn't happen until t equals 4, or in other words, calendar year 4. And that means that accident year 4, 5, and 6 are not going to be accurate. Now, if you think about this, the reason is that the historical LDFs were taking a cohort of claims to ultimate that were already reserved at 100% case strength. Now you're taking these same LDFs and applying them to claims that are already over-reserved, so the final result is going to be too high. That's something you're going to have to stop and think about before it'll make sense. And that's a scenario that we're going to address when we study the Berkowitz-Sherman method in a later chapter.